My next guest represents the great state of Tennessee in the United States Senate. She is a champion for forcing social media companies to operate with a level of accountability that nobody else has put on them. She's also known as a senator who is as tough as they come. I want you to welcome back to the show one of our very favorites, Republican Marsha Blackburn. Well, Senator, as you can tell, you are in friendly territory here tonight.
Yes, I am.
And you should be. For anybody who loves this country, you are one of those folks that we just thank God for because you are fighting the fight. I like to say it this way. You're doing the Lord's work in the devil's town.
Well, there you go.
You're doing it.
And I'm glad I'm there and honored to be there. Thank you.
You've watched, as we all have this week, the Democratic National Convention. Any surprises for you?
Not really any surprises. You know, I thought it was so interesting that they kind of co-opted the language of the right, talking about freedom and opportunity and the Constitution and the rule of law. But, you know, Governor, their policies are all about taking away your freedom, giving it to the government, and letting the government dish back out to you what they think you should have. And you look at Kamala Harris's policies, and she would end private health insurance and put everybody on Medicare for all, which is not, you wouldn't even have private insurance there. It would be total government control. She's voted to and wanted to abolish ICE. She has supported defunding the police. And these are things we know, but they're now trying to distance her from all of that.
You know, she didn't want to be named the border czar. I mean, when I say named, she didn't want to be called that.
Right.
Even though she was designated the border czar. I mean, she was in charge of the border. Joe Biden said, my vice president is going to be in charge. We've been told for 3.5 years the border's secure. They're doing a great job. We've heard it from Mayorkas. We hear it from her. We've heard it from Biden and the press secretary that the border is under control. So if it is so under control, if it is in such good shape, why wouldn't she embrace the title and be proud to be called the border czar and say, all that down there, that's my doing?
And that is what we would have expected her to do, is to, if she thought she had been successful in dealing with the border, she would have done that. But we know that 10.5 million illegal entrants and however many gotaways that are out there, hundreds of people that are on the terrorist watch list, 99 that they've admitted have been released into the country, tens of thousands of Chinese nationals coming into the country. And Governor, as you know, you don't just walk out of China and say, I'm going to cross an ocean and I'm going to get into the U.S. We know that they've been given permission. And then you've got tens of thousands of gang members. And this week we find out that DHS has probably lost track of over 300,000 migrant children.
When you say lost them, they have no idea where they are?
They don't know where they are. They cannot get their sponsors who were not properly vetted. They don't answer the phone. They don't respond to the email. And we found out about 15, 16 months ago that you had about 85,000 of these children that were missing, and they couldn't get track of them. We found it out because of a New York Times reporter talking about these children being part of labor gangs and working in food processing facilities. And now we find out that the number is north of 300,000 children. You know, the government doesn't know if they're dead or alive, if they're being trafficked, if they're being put into labor gangs or having to deal drugs. These are unaccompanied alien children that came into the country. The government placed them with sponsors, and now they're not able to get account of where these children are.
That alone, Senator, should be reason to make a change in administration. If you lose 300,000 children and you don't have a clue what happened to them, the first sin was letting them come over without their parents, without family, and just letting these kids come into the country. And the second, somehow believing they would magically line up with their sponsors. I mean, that's a horrific situation. That's bigger than most cities in America, 300,000. And these are kids.
These are children. That's right.
Are you confident the election this year is going to be on the up and up? And by that I mean done with integrity, honest, fair, objective, all the votes counted that should be counted, and none of the votes counted with people who are not legal to vote?
Yes, and I am encouraged that we have several states that have strengthened their voting laws. Arizona has recently cleared that hurdle. The court has decided they can have that ID and proof of citizenship. There are 24 states that have joined together with a lawsuit to go before the court to make certain that people are citizens that vote. These are important steps. In Tennessee, I have to brag on us. Our Secretary of State, Trey Hargett, has been ranked by the Secretaries of State as our state having the most safe and secure elections. And we are just really honored with that.
It is something to applaud and something to be proud of.
Yes, it is.
We are here with Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. This week, she introduced a resolution condemning the so-called border czar of the past 3 years, Vice President Kamala Harris. And we're kind of glad you did that.
Well, thank you.
You have done some, what I would consider epic moments in the U.S. Senate, one of which was the day that the social media company executives came to the Senate to pretend that they were really accountable, that they were trying to be fair and balanced. The takedown that I watched you do of Mark Zuckerberg in particular was one of the finest moments I've ever seen in a Senate hearing.
Thank you.
I just want to say, you showed some moxie out there. And I mean, you scared him to death. I could see in his face, it's like, who let me come here to talk to her? But you have been on top of this issue in a way that most of the folks in Congress haven't. Explain what it is that you think we're really being taken advantage of.
Oh, indeed. And yes, social media does need to be held accountable. And that is why I wrote the Kids Online Safety Act. It is bipartisan. Senator Blumenthal and I have done this as a team. There are 72 senators that are co-sponsors, and it cleared the Senate with a 91-3 vote.
91
to 3.
There's almost nothing that goes like that.
That's right. But there is agreement that our children should be protected in the virtual space. So this requires safety by design for online and a duty of care. You know, Governor, in the physical world, there are laws against exposing children or selling alcohol, tobacco, pornography to children, exposing them to pornography, taking them to a casino, taking them to a strip show. You can't do that. But what we have learned is in the virtual space, children are exposed to this 24/7. So this puts in place protections, forces the social media platforms to open those black box algorithms, gives parents and kids a toolbox to use to set their settings so that they know what the exposure is, and then gives a portal for kids to be able to report bad actors. So you can get these drug dealers and pedophiles off those platforms and clean up this virtual space for our children.
You know, I think people need to understand, in the old days, if somebody was going to take advantage of a child, they'd stand on some seedy street corner, or they'd have a kidnapper van over by the park and offer kids candy to get in the van. These days, all the predators are online.
That's right.
They're fishing for these kids, and that's where the kids are.
That's right.
I mean, they're floating in that water, and they're getting the bait. And I mean, it's incredible that you have a almost unanimous vote. But I want to say plaudits to the Democrats as well, who worked with you to get this done, who recognized this is not a partisan issue. This is one of those few things. Where does it go from here? Will it pass the House? Will it go on? Will the president sign it?
It is heading to the House, so everyone needs to call their member of Congress and say it's time to pass the Kids Online Safety Act. And I encourage them to keep up with the work that we are doing here. You cannot continue to expose children to self-harm, cyberbullying, pedophiles, drug dealers, and do that on the virtual space. There have to be those protections put in place to protect our children and to give parents what they need.
It is a remarkable piece of legislation. It's kind of nice to see Washington do something that we can all say, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that, rather than, why in the world did you do that? And this is one of those. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about the races this year. I know that you're actually in a re-election effort,
Yes, I
although
am.
I cannot imagine that the opponent you have is being taken that seriously, but you still will work hard because that's what you do.
That's right.
Chuck Schumer has said Democrats are going to keep the Senate. What do you think?
Oh, no, they're not. Republicans are going to take the Senate. We've got great candidates and great races that are going on. Tim Sheehy out in Montana, Captain Sam Brown in Nevada. You've got Bernie Moreno in Ohio, who is going to win that race.
Got some Ohio people here.
Right. Mike Rogers out of Michigan. Huckabee is out of Wisconsin. And you've got McCormick over in Pennsylvania. And, of course, Governor Justice over in West Virginia. So you're going to see Republican control of the U.S. Senate. And I fully believe President Donald Trump at the top of that ticket going to the White House. And all of your viewers can keep up with our race. As you said, I am up for re-election, and it is MarshaBlackburn.com to keep up with my race.
And we want to do that because we need to keep you there.
Thank
You're
you.
doing the kind of job we all wish
Thank you.
that we saw. And you can keep up with Senator Marsha Blackburn through all of her social media platforms, visiting her guest page. Go to Huckabee.tv. We have a direct link to her page.